on the agenda? Okay, if there isn't any, and see any hands up. Let's go to the staff presentations. That project status and financial reports.
All right, so this is Nikki Hooper is going to start us off tonight with the project reports.
Let me just get that to the right page. And let me
I did have a public comment.
And on his hand raised.
Okay, Anton,
Thank you, Anton Young here. I wasn't quick enough to get my hand up before you moved on. The voters passed Measure R. They were promised that they would have a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee who would actively review expenditures. The meeting you're having tonight, you do not have a legally constituted Bond Oversight Committee. You don't even have the minimum 7 required. You do not have one of the legally required positions. You have 5 members. Of the total committee, you have 12 vacancies. You can't take any action at this meeting on any matter at all.
the
How
intent
can you fulfill, beg your
Intent-
pardon?
take any action tonight. We're here to hear the reports of the staff.
You want me to give my comments? Do we want to have a dialogue or what?
I don't know, I'm sorry, it just seems like a broken record to me.
On whose part, your record or mine?
Fine,
Do
I'm-
you want me to continue my comments? You want me not?
every meeting, we get the same comments from the same individual.
So do you want me to continue? You're going to continue to interrupt me.
We'll get it in the recording.
Beg your pardon?
Go ahead and continue and we'll get it recorded.
There's no status on the updates of the compliance audits. You had a forensic audit 5 years ago. Only 30 of the 112 recommendations have been audited to determine whether they've been implemented. The current audits have been delayed for over a year. There's no indication that they haven't even been started. There's been no entrance conference on the 2 audits to determine if the forensic recommendations were implemented. There's no minutes of the last meeting that have been presented, even though they've been requested. You have not posted on your website documents presented at your meeting, which is not in compliance with the education code. So for you to have this meeting, it's a charade. You're giving the impression that you have a aggressive review of expenditures, which is required by the education code. So for you to continue this charade, I think is outrageous. You do not have a legally required committee. You're short 12 members. You're not following up on the audits. You're not posting documents on your website. You're not even presenting your minutes. That's the end of my comments.
All right, let's move on.
All right, let me just share the screen so everybody can see the presentation. Welcome, everybody, to November. Another month has gone by and we keep moving along on our projects. I don't know why that one closed. Let me try that again. Or not. So Kennedy and Richmond High Schools, we have our site-specific master plans that went to the board last month, and now we are presenting an RFQP for the architectural services. Hercules has been submitted to DSA. We've gotten our first round of comments, so we're now in just about to submit our back check to be able to get that approved. Shannon has just been submitted to DSA last month, so we anticipate it coming out. The initial comments coming out in January is what DSA is telling us. Procurement, we have Riverside that's still waiting for next summer to be able to be implemented. Collins and Cameron have completed their bid process, and we have pending budget increase to be able to award the contract, and I have more on that later in the presentation. Lake is moving along for increment 1. Increment 2, we're evaluating the bids that came in at the end of October. And in construction, we have Pinole Valley, which we're getting to the very end of construction and starting our closeout process. The E-rate project is still in construction. It's been held up quite a bit by the same supply chain issues that we've seen across the board. But we are continuing to install what comes in. And Kenby Fields is also under construction, and we have more on those 3 projects in the presentation. Yes,
On the Collins and Cameron,
yes.
how much is the budget increase on each of those?
So I have a slide,
Okay, you have a slide later?
Yeah.
Good.
so that'll go through those. Anton, did your hand go down? Okay.
Ellen,
Yes,
Lorraine here.
Lorraine.
In your planning, you have Kennedy and Richmond. Is this starting the Measure R bond funds for the cost of the architects? Is that starting it? Or are they still on the C and D or D and E? I'm sorry.
So for the original master planning work that was done, was underneath D and E. This RFQP that we're sending out now, and when we come back to the board, those would be Measure R funds that would move those architectural agreements forward at that time.
Okay, so we're starting now. I know Kennedy had 600,000 or something like that for the field
Currently, there's no budget at that time.
under R, yeah. Okay, thank you.
so Kennedy High School, the bleacher field and press box projects. And for a new member, that this is really consisting of replacing, sorry, I should have stayed up here, replacing the old home bleachers with new visitors bleachers. We're moving the home side to this side of the field. We're relocating some of the track events so that we can get 2 long jump triple jumps, which is similar to what we have on other campuses. Revitalizing the shot put area, moving the discus, replacing the field turf itself, as well as replacing the track surfacing. And then some ADA access improvements to the and parking areas to make us code compliant for access. So those are all the big scope items that are part of this project. The right now, this is the slab is just about to go in here. It's been poured now for the electrical yard. We also have we had the big concrete pump out, and it was pouring the slab for the bleachers. This is showing the home side, but the visitor side was also poured on the same day. So those are finishing up, and we're moving into getting the track surface applied, as well as removal of the turf. The turf is supposed to arrive at the end of the month. For Lake Elementary School, this is a full campus rebuild. So we're doing it in 2 phases because the campus is occupied while the construction project is occurring. But it really is replacing the entire extent. So right now we're at the beginning of the first phase. And so we have building pads for what we call the A, B, and C buildings. The A building is our admin and library space, and our B and C house classrooms for grades 1 through 6. Right now we are installing the storm and sewer lines. So those are the 2 lines that are going in. This particular picture is of the storm. So we also have our SWIP measures in place. So we have a construction entrance off of Giant to try to, that's where all the spoils and soil are being stockpiled. That's also where the construction trailers are. So if you go down Giant, so you'll see our construction entrance over there. And we have another construction entrance through Manchester. At Pinole Valley High School Fields and Press Box project, this one's really at the very tail end of completion. We turned over part of the site, at least for some activities, but this last month, the tennis court and basketball court striping was completed. So the asphalt was put down, then we put the special colored surface on top, and they also installed the backstops and the nets for tennis. They're still finishing up some of the gates around the edge. We still have some gate hardware that's outstanding. But it's coming together nicely. So this is our softball baseball field. That's on the far end. Most of this is a complete, except again for some gate hardware and signage and home plates, which got caught up in our supply chain as well. And then we have the football field where we replaced the turf there. We replaced the track surface. We installed the home bleachers and press box, and then we built the field house. The school has been using the field, and they won their playoff game. I'd like to not try to take any credit for that, but you know, the new field pretty awesome for the game. So anyways, go Spartans. So those are active construction projects.
Ellen? Could you go back to the one with the football field? That's it. Now I know I can see that I can see the football field, I can see the tennis, I can see the basketball. Where's the softball field in connection with all this?
It's this direction.
Oh, okay. Maybe
So
you can see it on the full picture if you go back a couple.
Yeah, if you, this right there, this tiny little portion right there is the edge of the track.
Oh, okay, okay. I just
Track.
couldn't picture it. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Earl's really great at taking these aerials. So he has been blessing us with aerials throughout the construction project. And I think he's getting very sentimental about it because he sent me quite a few emails about his time taking construction photos of Pinole coming to an end. We've really appreciated his work. You have a question, Don?
Just a comment. Now, I've been a professional photographer now for 46 years, and I would die to be able to take as good a picture as this Earl has done with his drone. Yeah, I live in Richmond. Drones are illegal in Richmond, but I doubt that even if I had a drone that I could do as good a job as him. I don't think people can appreciate fully just how valuable those pictures will be in the future. Not only are they great for archives, but they're great pictures too. Earl does a great job. So, he's worth every penny you don't pay him.
So then on Collins and Cameron, just to review, from the top level, this project consists of, the initial impetus of the project was to replace the existing boiler systems that were, the original piping, of course, is original for campus, so that's quite old. With a new HVAC system that would allow both mechanical ventilation and air conditioning at the school sites. But once that occurs, you also have an electrical scope to be able to support the new system. And then we have additional requirements for ADA improvements to additional access, compliance with door hardware and flooring and plumbing and sink cabinets and restrooms. So even though we call it an HVAC project, there's other things that are bundled within that to be able to accomplish that scope. We did go out to bid for this project. We were happy when we had 7 contractors show up to the pre-bid conference, but we had 2 that put in official bids, and the being Alton, unfortunately, both bids were over the budget. And so what we're looking for is a budget adjustment, which is on the board agenda for Wednesday night. And it would add an additional 2 million to the Cameron project, and an additional 3.8 million to Collins. So did you have?
So is that due to, that budget was 6 years ago?
Yes. It was.
So it's due to escalation of prices,
Mhm.
inflation, additional costs, all that.
Yeah, and as Alan pointed out, it's also the electrical upgrades. We got into the systems. There was.
So you got into the system and.
So it's a PG upgrade, bringing new service on both campuses to power the units for this. It's the added accessibility improvements that are required by DSA, not only for exterior, but interior inside the classrooms and restrooms.
So that's, we have budget for that, and we have, so where does the money come from, I guess?
Right, we do have, so we have been very happy to receive additional state matching reimbursements. Over the last years, we just recently received 2 new projects that have been funded by the state. So that fund has continued to grow as far as our state reimbursements that were associated with D&E projects. We were looking to access that portion of the dollars to be on this, so we
So
would
that
not have to
covers-
check.
That covers the
Metro R.
increase in the budget.
Yeah, so we're doing this outside.
Yeah, and they're not, and so it's, these additional funds are not part of the bond program, the earlier bond program. See,
Well, they are part of the bond program. I mean, they're state proceeds coming back, modernization
Okay.
applications and or other state.
So that goes back in,
Reimbursements.
so the state money feeds back into the bond,
Yes,
leaves measure our funds.
that's correct.
Mhm.
That's always been the way we've made the shortfall from the original.
I
Critical
thought,
needs projects, the
I'm just
181.
refreshing I think
That's
you
right.
explained that before.
Yeah,
that-
where we had the 164, I believe it was, and the state funds, and which was always projected to cover those.
So the point is, you don't have to measure our funds or any other funds. Because the state is reimbursed that, and that's going back into the bond funds that are.
Yes, and you'll see that in
Available.
financial reports. when this goes to the-
Okay. That's all I have.
See the rate, that's right.
Does she-
Yeah,
Lori?
yes. I saw this in the agenda and I saw that you did say that there were no R funds and that these are all from Fund 21. And so like John, I said, where are they getting the money? So I did a little research and I went back from January through this date, 11/16. And I just looked at the Fund 21 change orders that we've had. And over that period, we've had 18 change orders that affect Fund 21, totaling approximately $14.4 million. 10 of the 18 are from Pinole Valley, which isn't a 2016 project because it was before then. But I have the same question. Where is all this money coming from? This $14 million in change orders. And that's a lot for a slush fund, or I know you get some money back, like you had one change order where you got 35,000 back and all. But is there any way we could see some sort of report on where we are? We haven't seen the change orders because we haven't been getting the financial reports. As an aside, you put these up for the district, the board, maybe you could just copy them and put them in our, for our reports. You don't have to do anything different. I mean, you've presented it to the board, but anyway. So I'm doing up a report on how much it is. And I just like to, and I'm going to send in a question for a report. Just where does the money come from? It's a lot of money. We only had 130 million that we did from the last two bonds. So unless you're getting a lot of money back from projects, I'd like to see some accounting on that. So I'll send you what I'm working up, and maybe next time you can talk about it.
Sounds good. We'll take a look at it. But to answer your question in general, the change order process within the project budget itself. So when you send us your questions in writing, we'll make sure we answer them, present them in the next meeting.
Okay, so it's processed within the budget. So do you over budget, figuring you'll have change orders?
We budget contingency in for items that come up.
Okay.
So the difference though between the change orders, these are not changing.
Not changing. This is the
These
budget.
are
No.
the Collins and Cameron. These are really escalations in the cost of the project. Nothing's been started on these.
That's correct. Other than just the
Escalations in the cost of the project due to economic factors.
Yeah. But it's all got to come out of Fund 21.
Right, that's
That's a bond fund.
okay. I don't think anybody else is.
I don't think so. No, okay.
All right.
Moving on, so we also do construction newsletters of our projects that are in construction. We do monthly construction newsletters. We do somewhat quarterly design newsletters, just because the design process doesn't give you things to say every month. And so they would be pretty redundant if we tried to do them more than quarterly. But these are the construction newsletters for this month. And so we have them for each of our construction projects. They review similar information than what I talked about during the project status PowerPoint. So this one is Pinole Valley. We have one for Lake and one for, one for Kennedy. So those are, we also email those out to anybody who's on our mailing list, and to the CBOC members and the board members. So those will be coming out tomorrow. They also do list project website on them. So if you would like more information about the individual projects, you can click on these links and that will get you to those pages, which have additional presentations and all the monthly newsletters if you'd like to see where the projects are. The project status report, however, is produced mainly for the CBOC. And if we spend a little bit on this, whoa, that was not what I wanted to do. Project status. Okay, here we go. Back to the back to the page. It has the overall description of the scope. As well as information about the project team, the overall project schedule. It has what happened last month, what's coming up. And then it does have a summary of where we are in the contract. So we do have what the original contract cost is, what change orders have gone to the board, and then for what reason code. So we have 4 different reason codes of why the change orders occur. And then we have our PCOs, which are proposed change orders. These are things that could involve a variety of items. So some of them are things that came up as changes, but others of them are the contractor feeling out different options of how to solve a problem. So when you see these rejected and voided PCOs, that doesn't necessarily mean this is per se this big of a risk. It could just be items that we thought about doing, got the price for, said, oh, never mind, that's not a good idea, and we moved on. So this is up to date every month as far as where we are in our PCO and change order process. So it does give you an overall summary of what change orders have gone to the board and what's looking or out there as possible change orders. So this one was for Pinole, that has obviously the most change orders on it. Lake is a little different because it is a design build process. And so in design build, we actually have different contingencies that are built into the construction contract because it is formed before the design is complete. And so we don't know everything, and we go into the project knowing that the design isn't finished. And so therefore there's spaces and places that haven't been defined. And so the contingencies are an important part of making a design build contract work. And so these are listed here, but you can also see the pending PCOs on those, as well as our executed PCOs. So, but otherwise, this has very similar information. And then Kennedy is back to a design bid build project. So it looks very similar to Pinole as far as this box goes of the project summary.
Ellen? I noticed on your status update that you do have a completion, that you're going into closeout for Pinole. And I noticed on your reports here that Kennedy, you have a revised completion date of 12/30. So by the end of the year, both of these should be completed, right?
Well, Kennedy is looking to be stretched out. It's not official yet, but we have initial responses from the manufacturer of the scoreboard that we won't be able to get that scoreboard in until February. We were hardening up that date before it actually changes the contract, but we are aware that that's probably going to go past the first of the year.
Okay, fine.
All right, on to the financials.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Sonatina, so happy to have you here today. My name is Melissa Payne. I'm the Executive Director of Contracts Administration, working with the bond program and our other facilities department. So tonight I'll be walking you through our financial reports and a couple of audit updates, some good news and some more money in our future. These reports can be incredibly overwhelming, and we do have some very veteran members that are here. So I will share with you after the meeting our bond program management plan, which provides some additional descriptions of our financial reports and some acronyms and just some other kind of resources to help you as you're kind of getting up to speed on the different types of reports. And if you have any questions, let us know. So with no further ado, I'll kind of jump in. So in tonight's meeting, the financial reports, you'll see a variety of reports for each one. We have the reports ending in June 30. that close out the fiscal year, as well as the report for August, which is cumulative of July and August. And we have the financial report ending for September 30. So all of that information is here. It is posted on the facilities financial report pages. So if you wanted to look at a particular one, this first report really kind of identifies the overall bond program. These reports represent figures that go back to fiscal year 0 to current. And so really that's what this first report is here. And you can see under Cameron, that just moved, under Cameron at the top of the page, that's the project we were just talking about, the Cameron critical needs. Our active projects on this report have an asterisk. So along this line, you can see that the current board approved budget is 1.3 million. Based on the commitments, the contracts, different types of agency fees that have already been paid, there's about 1.1 left against the budget. And so this report will provide the historical program, bond program details for you for each site, and also has some footnotes to help describe some of the information and the financials that predate fiscal year 0. Jumping to page 47 in the CBOC packet, this is the same information. It's in lime green, and it is a carve out of the 2016 facilities master plan, which really, it provides some additional information. So you can see again here at the top of the report, Cameron is listed, but you can see there's a little bit more information that is available and can be broken out. So if the board is to approve the additional budget on Wednesday, November 16th, that change would then be reflected under the budget as an approved budget change. So you can see just below it, for Chavez, there was a board approved budget change for that project. And that's why you see that there as a negative 527. And so this is additional information and the 2016 facilities master plan carve out. Kind of as we go along, we have one more carve out of this report, which begins on page 53. And that is for measure R. So one of the things that we were talking about earlier is our 2016 facilities master plan is really the measure D 2010, the measure E 2012. And so this carve out report here, salmon color is what my daughter would describe it as, is measure R. And so this is the 2020 measure R. Back to a point that Mr. Anderson made, you can see at the top of the report that it says Fund 21 and Fund 35. So Fund 21 is the bond fund. Fund 35 is the fund, when we receive state dollars, they go to Fund 35 and then they pass through to the bond program. So that's why you see that reflected at the top of the report. So moving along to our next type of financial report, that really starts on page 56. And so this is the bond program financial status report. Again, this report is available through June 30, through August, and through September as included in your packet. You'll notice along this report on the right-hand side, you see it where it says notes and there's a number. Adjusted cash balance has a note of 1, the projected revenues have a note of 2. So think of this page as your table of contents and your guide through the remainder of the report. This is the overall summary of what we call above the line and below the line. So items above the line through June of 2023. That's what gets us to our projected cash balance, the 305. And then below that are items that we anticipate after June of 2023. So if we turn to the next page, we'll see that on note 1, you can see there at the top, this is the detail that supports that one number that you saw on that cover page. So consider the additional pages of what we affectionately call report 13 as the backup documentation and the additional notes that support that overall cover sheet. One of the notes that we would like to bring your attention to that I think is really helpful kind of as we're talking about project budgets tonight is actually on page 59, and that's note 5. So the 2016 Facilities Master Plan identified projects, scopes, and master plan budgets. So you can see on this report in the third column is the 2016 Facilities Master Plan budget. You can see there for Cameron, it's that 1.3. The following column, current budget, identifies any of those different types of increases. So if you could scroll down for me just a little bit, we can look at the totals. So one of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier in the meeting was the 2016 Facilities Master Plan budget for all of these items for the remainder of Measure D 2010 and E 2012 was 181.8. That has grown to 195, and with the board's approval on Wednesday, it will grow even more. That difference between those two dollar values has been made up with additional state funds that we've received, and I'll be able to tell you here in just a little bit later about almost another 10 million that we have coming our way. So report 13 provides really overall project budget information and has some of that good backup information that really kind of helps describe the actions. And that's why we have, starting on page 71, what is called our Fund 13 variance report. And so this was really developed by CBOC member, Ms. DeWitt, who's not here with us tonight. She's an accountant and an analyst by trade. And so this was something that she was doing to really take report 13 and understand what changed since the last report. What is the variance between the two? So tonight we bring to you a report 13 variance that's for fiscal year 22. So you can see the entire fiscal year on this one. And then if you could go just to the next page for me. You'll also have the monthly. So this first report here is an annual report. And then the next page, this actually represents 2 months. So this is July and August, but you can see kind of high level on this report that we had that burn rate of 1.5 in July and August. And then if you could go one more page for me. You'll see then in September, burn rate of just over 1 million. And so this is our report 13 variance. Our next style of report begins on page 75. I would argue that this is the report that Mr. Gosney affectionately reports to from time to time. The goal was to get the bond program on a single sheet of paper. We cheated and used the front and the back. Maybe we'll call it, we were creative. So essentially what this report identifies for you in a single line item is the overall bond program spending for that site. And then the footnotes in the last column give you an overall idea of, is this a school that was previously modernized or built by the bond program? Is this an active project or is this a future project? And so with that, I promise we are coming to the end. Starting on page 81 is our accounts payable checklist. And this is one that a former CBOCer described and said, you can see how every penny is spent. And that's really the goal of this report. This report identifies for you every check and every warrant, every payment that is made. It is separated by site and it gives you that level of detail. One of the things that Ms. Humes has helped us learn along the way is when you're trying to figure out if was this measure D, was this measure E, is this from the non-bond resource, meaning our state dollars, or is this measure R? You can use that short account column. So it starts with 21, that's our fund. We know it's the bond fund. And the next 4 digits are what we call a resource. So those 4 digits identify for us what the source of those dollars are within Fund 21. So I'll ask if you could just turn to the next page so I could share with the team that we do have a guide for you on each AP checklist. So do you see it there, the bond fund resources, so that you can identify if it's 9745, that's our measure D 2010, 9748, That is Measure E 2012. 9747 is the new Measure R, and 9790 is our non-bond measure resource. So those really are our state funds that transfer from Fund 35 into Fund 21. So as you're flipping through the AP checklist and taking a look at the different types of bond program expenditures, you can see exactly which bond funded resource was used for those payments. Jumping to page 103. This is another one of our annual reports. This is the bond program key performance indicator summary reports. And so this is through June 30 of 2022. There's a lot of information in this report. And we are going to be putting together the videos to kind of walk you through this detail. But I won't necessarily do that tonight, but if you have questions, please let us know. But this is another report that really provides overall key performance indicators of the entire bond program and brings in a lot of additional information. You can see there just right off the top in table 1, it identifies the breadth and width of our bond program starting back in 1998. All the way through our most recent bond measure, which was Measure R 2020. So another annual report that's been prepared for you this evening is on page 108, and this is a fiscal year report of payroll data, salary and benefits, and the adjustments that are made pursuant to the Attorney General's opinion and audit recommendations. We do a monthly timekeeping where we identify how all of our time is spent, and we can only charge our time that meets that Attorney General's opinion, specifically spent on the projects to the bond fund. And then there are journals that are done throughout the year to make those adjustments appropriately. So I'd like to turn the page and share with you some really fantastic news. The last time we talked about the school facility audits was in May. We had completed 7 of the 10. We had 3 left to go. Last one was done last week. We have successfully completed all 10 of our site-specific school facility program audits. These are the audits required by the Ed Code that are done. Essentially, we receive, as you can see here in front of you, millions and millions of dollars from the state bonds that just come back and leverage our local program and stretch our dollars even further. But we have to use those funds right. And if you don't, you have to give them money back. And so these audits are absolutely critical. We just completed the last one, which is Kennedy. That was also successful. It's now available on the district's website. And those were the 10 audits that we had lined up. We've now completed all 10. There will be more, of course, because if you'll turn the page one more for me, it's not fair because I always get to sit in the lucky seat and give the really, really good news, even though this news reflects all of our team. We are so happy to share with you that on October 26th, a couple of days before the kiddos went out to get goodies, we got some sweet news for ourselves, and that's that another almost $9.5 million is going to be sent from the state to the county right into Fund 35 and move right over to Fund 21, that good old resource 9790, extend our dollars even further. I would be remiss if I didn't identify that these original grant applications you see there were only about 7.6 million. We work to try to get every single dollar we can. There's a very specific state process prescribed for that, a 15-day letter, a 4-day letter, lots and lots of documentation. But the apportioned award from the state, you can see those dollars went up for both projects. They were allocated at the October 26th state allocation board meeting, and we have submitted the paperwork for priority funding. So we are hoping those, I believe Lewis signed those today, and so we're hoping to see funds within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Add in the holidays, it'll probably be just in January. that's well ahead of the schedule and what we planned. We didn't originally think we would get these funds this fiscal year. We didn't originally think we would get this much. And so it really, really is excellent news. And you can see there at the bottom, in just the last 10 years, our district has received almost $150 million. And it's made a tremendous difference for our program. We're continuing to aggressively seek additional funds every opportunity that we can, but really excited to share with you tonight that another 9.46 is headed our way. And you'll know the minute that it gets here because it'll show up in the financial reports and you'll be able to see it. So that really concludes my presentation for this evening. I'm not sure if there's any questions. I know that was a lot of information in a short period, but hopefully that helps to get us back up to date. We're looking to have the reports back on a monthly cycle, so that you'll have that information the way that you are used to receiving it. Hopefully we've solved kind of the staffing issue that we had. So I'm not sure, are there any questions?
Lorraine has her hand up.
Hi, Ms. Humes.
Hi, Melissa, would you go back to page 108 where you have the personnel?
Yes.
Now, we know that around January 22, Sung Ja moved from facilities to business services, where she's the executive secretary. What about her salary? That was in our budget. What happens to that money?
So when her FT changed, her salary funding changed. And so for our district, each position basically has its own funding stream associated with it. That FTE has assigned budget. So when she transferred positions out of the bond program into the business office, she transferred into a position that, I'm not going to say something I don't know, but I can tell you it's not funded by the bond program. And what you see reflected is her time during the fiscal year when she was in the coordinator role that was within the bond program. And I believe that was through February. I believe she moved over to the side in February. And so it was more than half of the year that she was still here and doing her timesheets every month.
Right. Now, what happens, maybe Lewis will know, what happens to her salary? Does that just go back into the bond fund?
Well, at the end of the year, when it collapses, as we roll the year, it'll collapse back into the fund.
Okay, so that's more money that we can spend on change orders or whatever.
Yeah.
Good.
And if we fill the position between now and then those dollars will go towards the new person that's hired.
Sure. Makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. So I had two other questions on here. The bond audit bond performance audits. What's the status of those with the Board of Education?
So by statute, the requirement that the board receive those reports.
Okay,
And that at the last board meeting, I believe that was November 2nd, both of those reports were presented
so
to
they
the board.
received it, and
Mhm.
that's checks the box. Okay.
Yes.
And the one other question I had is the proposed change to the CBOC. I didn't see it on the agenda for this week's meeting. There's a
Right.
meeting tomorrow or Wednesday.
Right, so I've been working with the superintendent. The superintendent is working with the board currently.
Okay,
What we're proposing is actually to bring it back as a joint meeting with the CBOC and the board as a joint meeting to review the policy. And we'll move forward in that direction.
okay.
And so I don't have a date for that yet, but I'll let you know as soon as we have that date. We're hoping to do that before the end of the calendar year.
So pretty much, hopefully it'll be in December.
Yes, that is our hope.
All right, Lorraine, I had put.
Yeah.
Put on there, by the presentation today, and we have the reports that we need. For that hybrid report for the fiscal year ending last July.
Yeah. This is the, I had given this out in a 8:15. We wanted to transition, this is for Gaia, we wanted to transition, we used to do our annual reports, which is a legal requirement, on a calendar year basis. And we wanted to switch to a fiscal year basis, which would match the financial reporting and the audits from the district. I had done a, matter of fact, as an aside, I had done a survey of CBOCs in the state. And we got about 150 some replies. And I'd say all but maybe 3 of them or 4 of them actually based their reporting on the fiscal year. So we're doing now what we're, after this is over, we'll be doing what most of the CBOCs do. The main thing is right here, because we were going from a January to a December, and now we're going from a July in one year to June 30th of the second year. So you can see in column, let's see, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that's what we're dealing with now. On annual report 2021, we're going to have an abbreviated report because we have the audits. And so that's essentially just going to be concerning the audits. Then in annual report 2022, we will have all the other things that we normally have in an annual report. We'll talk about the projects that were done, things like that. So we were holding up doing the annual report 2021 until the board could receive the audits. Now, they received them, they had it on their agenda on 4/13/22, but the CBOC had canceled a meeting. So we hadn't had the report, so we could review it and give them our comments. So they tabled it, and then they came out in 4/27/22, and I think they were too busy or something. They tabled it again, and in 8/31, the same thing. If you look at the agendas, you'll see they're really, really full. So finally, 11/2/22, they did receive the audits. Now, according to Ed Code 15280, Ed Codes are tells us the laws we have to follow and the district has to follow. The board has to give a report to the CBOC, and in 15280 section A2, it states, the governing board of the district shall provide the Citizens Oversight Committee with responses to any and all findings, recommendations, and concerns addressed in the annual independent financial and performance audits required by subparagraphs, blah, 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 within 3 months of receiving the audits. So, Louis, I'm going to ask you, they received the audit. There weren't any problems with the audit. They passed without any adverse findings. So could you ask them to give us a speeded up, just saying they accepted it, so that we can then put annual 2021 up on our, completed. Because we were just waiting to hear from them if they accepted it or not.
Yes, Lorraine, we can work on that.
I appreciate it.
Typically, they would not have to respond because there were no findings. But if it's something we want, I'll follow up with them for sure.
Yeah, because it said any and all, it didn't say just adverse in the law. So that way the CBOC knows that they got it. they looked over it and they accepted it. The technicality, but it's nice to have. Now, as far as the annual report 2022, we've received information, and part of the financial reports today, if you noticed, it said 6:30. And that would go into our annual report, those financial reports and all. So we've gotten those together. We have most of the reports from the district that we need. Jason and I are working on the chapter dealing with the projects. So then we haven't put that together yet. So we'll be working on that, but I want to get the annual report 2021 up on it first. So
Lorraine, you said 2022, but what you're really referring to, that transitional period 2021 that just kind of covers the audits in the 6 for 2020, 21 in the last 6 months of that fiscal year.
right.
And the report for 2022, all of that information will be done in essentially the first half of next year. And you'll have in June of 23, you'll have the fiscal data for this. So, okay.
Well, actually, we want to bring it in, and you see up on the first row there, the period covered for the annual report 2021 is transitional, and that would be from July of 21 to June or of 20 to June 30th of 21.
Right.
Now, when at that same time, we were doing annual reports. So the next column over, you see that the annual report for 2022, it's from January of 2021, not July of 2021, to June of 22. Am I right on that? Is that okay, John?
Well, last year, I will just go back to last year's report, covered the year 2020. And the way the budgets work here, what we had, the way the old system worked, we had the data from the half of this fiscal year and the half of the next fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
You had to kind of produce a hybrid.
Yeah,
You
December
produced a
2nd.
hybrid. Right, but now we're strictly on the fiscal year data. So in effect, Lorraine, this transitional period is really just the 6 months.
Yes, yeah. Well, the only thing that's going to be in it is the audits, and they cover for a year.
Yeah, but you also have the data that the information, the spending between the 1st of January of 2021 and or the 1st of January of that fiscal, the fiscal year ending this July, 1st of July or end of June.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I'll call you and we can talk about it.
Reports that you put in there for the period that this goes to.
Yeah. Because see, what I was going to do was do the financials and the reports from January 21 through 6/22.
Right.
So because the last annual report ended 12/20.
But I was just saying that
Yeah.
this of the financial data.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Good.
all right. I put in some reference documents, including the revised draft minutes from August. I didn't get a draft of the last meeting yet. And then I put the other information in there for just general reference of what's the board has got for consideration. I think the next meeting, election of officers, we do that in December. And then planning for activities, it's probably premature. It sounds like we can't really do that until we have this meeting with the board on the CBOC policy.
Right. Well, John, what about, we've got the resolution going right now where we are not going to make any decisions.
All right, so what you're suggesting is we don't officers until we get a resolution from the board.
Yeah.
That's
How
what-
does that sound good?
Right, so that won't be an issue for us to consider until that comes about,
Yeah.
until we get a yay or nay on the board policy, I guess the way it's said.
And maybe some more people.
Right. Okay. Next meeting is scheduled for December 12th, same time, same place. And with that, I'll adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay